Hi everybody, this is Rafael Varona, illustrator and animator from Berlin. Yeah, I wanted to show you something that I use a lot in my illustrations. I love textures. I love like grainy textures and noisy patterns and everything on illustrations, just in order to make them more natural and give them more depth. So, I'm not the biggest fan of just flat illustrations. I always try to add live with textures to it. And I already did that in some of these leaves, as you can see, but not in all of them. Some of them are just a flat one color, and I just wanted to share with you guys how I add this extra layer on top of them, especially in this case with just adding shadow to these forms in order to give them more depth. So in this case, the shadow has to go left because we have like this sort of like light situation coming from the right. And you see that it happened to some of the leaves and trees in the background. I wanted to share that with you in one of these here. So let's pick the layer as I did here, and I would like to just add that shadow within the borders of the layer, which you can do quite easily by just clicking on the layer actions and then go to load as selection. So you see the layer itself is being selected, and I create a new layer and I will draw only within that layer itself. I'm going to the brush and you see my color is wrong. So what you can do is just click for press your finger for a long time on any color that you want to have if it's already on your illustration. So in this case, it's this one of the tree itself. And in order to get a shadow, I want it to be a little bit darker. So that's what I'm doing here. You see on the color wheel, for example, you can just, put the color darker that you already have, or you can just go into the brightness settings, I'm gonna go quite dark here. So that is done. And then I'm gonna go to the brush. And let's just start this. I'm having my sort of favorite brush, the charcoal pencil, selected. I gave it a star, which is quite easy. So you go to all your brushes, you just click on the star, and then it becomes part of your favorites. You see if I take it off, it's out. I'm gonna put it back in. And all right, so let's get started with drawing. So I'm gonna just add this layer on top of the tree. So we have that shadowy situation. As you can see, it's just a very flat color on top. So it's not really, what I was looking for. What you can do to solve that is that you go just to the brush settings, and then you have a lot of, Fresco offers you a lot of really cool settings, brush settings, where you can just, in order, like instead of finding textures online, for example, that you can just put on top of, or use the shape of a tree or something, you can actually create those textures yourself with your brush within the brush settings. So I'm going to shape dynamics, for example. And you can, oh no, now I'm in scattering, but on shape dynamics, you see that there's a couple of things, like for example, the size jitter. If you just play around with that a little bit, you can see everything in the brush settings in the preview, the minimum diameter, angle jitter. And you can even try it out by just, try this brush, just drawing within this area to see if that's actually what you're looking for. All right, so I'm just going to play around. I also don't really know what I'm doing here until I just find what I'm sort of looking for. I'm going back to a scattering, which is also quite cool. You can sort of work on what is the distance of each dot within that brush that you can use here. I don't really know what's happening here, and this is just my explanation, but you see in the preview what's going to happen. This I sort of like, so let's try that out. Here again, I'm going back to my layer, and you see it's already like really adding more of a grainy, noisy texture on top. So this is sort of what I'm looking for. Now, in order to even add more of these texture effects, what you can do is you erase, parts of this layer to get that. So either you can just press on this button circle on the left bottom, and then just, you know, use your pen, and then automatically the eraser is being selected based on your brush settings, which is kind of cool. But I actually want to get more into the brush settings itself, which you find here. They are quite the same as, the eraser settings, which are quite the same as the brush settings. And what I've really found very interesting here is the scattering. So if you go to scatter, for example, and you just amplify it, you just add more scatter to it, you see how, you know, again, this grainy texture becomes even more white. So let's try that out. What you can do here is just really press on it very, very softly. Don't go in too much. And you already have this really nice effect on top of it. So I'm just gonna add that here. So this is one way of doing it. What you can do on top, I mean, just play around with it, you know, like I'm not nearly done here, but it's just nice to find the right way to just add this shadow here. Again, I'm gonna use the eraser. This is just a little bit too much. Maybe let's make it a little bit smaller. All right, press too hard here. There we go. I'm gonna deselect. So you see, we have that shadowy texture on top. What you can do on top of that, even, you know, to give it a little bit more depth, even, is that you can use something that I use a lot in my illustrations, and that lays within the layer properties, and it's within the blend modes. So the blend mode that we have right now is normal, but what I always like to do is I use multiply. What multiply does in this case is that it just takes the color of the layer itself that you've been using here and multiplies it with the color, with whatever color is on the back or whatever color it's on. So I'm going to do that here. So you see, I'm going to multiply and it's becoming quite dark. You can actually play around with the opacity to just make it a little bit less or a bit more. So this is just right for me. I'm gonna let it here. And what I'm gonna do here then is that what I always do, I'm gonna use the transform tool and just make it a tiny little bit bigger. All right. And I'm gonna move it around. So the effect that you have here right now is that you have more wiggle room, more play room within this layer, you know, to just move it on top of your tree layer and actually add this sort of extra depth on top of this tree, just like to give it more also of a border, of a stroke, you know, which is actually quite nice because you can use that with all of your layers. You see it here as well, you know, and it just takes the color of your background layer as well and just separates it from it, and just, in my opinion, adds this beautiful, very natural depth to the whole illustration.